Hi guys, good morning. Happy Friday Eve to everyone. Whew. I was kind of in a rush. I'm like a minute late. I'm so sorry, you guys. That was a whole 60 seconds. I wasn't here on time. How's everybody been this week? This week for me has really flown by. There is so much to do before you travel to go anywhere, whether it's for business or just for fun. And this week has been like, I don't know, I feel like it's been super busy. And what's funny is that when I look back at the things that I've done this week, I haven't really done that much. I don't know, I think I'm just anxious and excited to get to Tucson. So I definitely have Tucson on the brain, and it's really cool because right now on Jesse James Beads, everything that is orange, shop the orange collection, is 30% off. That is good until midnight, 1:31, right? So until the last day of the month, which is just coming up. Checking the slider here. So 30% off the orange collection, and the code is OrangeU. That's what I was looking for. I should have written it down. The code is OrangeU, like Orange You Glad. We're doing 30% off of all orange. So when you go to check out, definitely add that to your little area where it asks for your coupon code and get your 30% off of orange beads. There's two reasons why this matters. Number one, there is a connection to Tucson here. Some of you are like, okay, I didn't follow that thought. It connects to Tucson because you guys know what is on the trees right now in Tucson, which always blows me away because it's winter, right? It is winter time here on the eastern half of the United States. It is cold, it is rainy, it is cloudy, it is gross. But in Tucson, the oranges are on the trees. And it never ceases to amaze me when I get there. And number one, there are cactuses, which being from the South we don't see cactuses. We kind of feel about cactuses the same we do about palm trees, right? Those are just things we don't see every day. So seeing cactuses is like, whoa. But then to see the orange trees with actual oranges on them is just amazing to me. So, yeah, all orange things, right? We've got citrus on the brain right now. I am thinking about getting off that plane and seeing those orange trees. And I'm also remembering that we had a question over on the Secret Stash group about what colors you guys kind of struggle to work with, and orange is one of those. So we thought this would be a really good opportunity to kind of get you to break outside of your creative box a little bit and maybe get inspired to use some bead colors that you don't necessarily go for. So orange is one of those, right? And there is no shortage of beautiful orange beads over on jessijamesbeads.com. So go over to the site. You can see on the slider where you can get your 30% off. The coupon code is there as well. But if you will click on the drop down menu that says shop, then you can actually, let's see, no, it's not the shop. It's the next one over. It says shop by color, and then it has a pull down menu with all of the different colors. Click on orange and look at all of the beautiful things that are in our 30% off color right now. So the orange collection, that's going to include specialty things as well, like the bubble balls, even the jack-o'-lanterns for Halloween. If you wanted to go ahead and stock up on those, lots of charms, and then the bead strands. And the bead strand that we're using today is from the Pantone Collection. This is Orange Tiger. This is included, so you can get this 30% off. You can get this as a bundle, or you can get it individually. So that's what we're using today. Just gonna stop yapping for a second and say hi to everybody. Hi, Janice, Susie, so good to see everybody. Kathy, Fran, Dawn. Hi guys, it's so good. Hey Eve, to see you guys. I look forward to this every week, and even though next week I am going on an adventure to be in Tucson, I will miss you guys. And so remember that there will not be an official Facebook Live here on Thursday for next week, but I'm sure that we will do some impromptu Facebook Lives while we are there for those of you who cannot join us next week. So you will be able to kind of get a sneak peek of what's going on while we are in Tucson. Really looking forward to it. I cannot wait to see everybody who is coming out to spend a day of creating with us. Okay, so for the project today, we're actually going to do two things, and part of the reason we're doing two things is because they're both really easy. We are just going to do some simple stringing. We're going to string a necklace up, and we're going to use the strand just like it is. And then we are going to use some faux suede lace for the length portion of this necklace, and we're going to tie some sliding knots for this. And this is a good technique. There's two really good techniques here. Even though we're keeping it simple, just the simple stringing and using the crimps, that's a good technique. Never hurts to brush up on that. And then using the sliding knots, this is one that it's actually kind of a challenge for me. This is really easy, but I have a tendency to take things that are really easy and make them very, very hard. So, but this is a really cool knot that you can incorporate in a lot of different ways. So we're going to do that knot in the necklace, and then we're also going to do it in a bracelet as well, just because it's kind of quick. So we're going to do that, and that'll be our project for today, and hopefully I will inspire you to pick up some orange, right? If you need a jumping off place for orange because you find it difficult to use orange, start with simple stringing. You cannot go wrong with one of the Jessie James bead strands that is already pre-strung for you, right? Like, just take the guesswork out of it, string this up, add the faux suede lace for the length portion of it, and then maybe as you're going along, you'll definitely get inspired, I hope, to use some more of the orange beads. All right, so let's get down to that and let's get to it, shall we? All right, you guys. Oh, this tripod, it is never going to, it's never going to make me happy, I don't think. I think I'm going to have to invest in a different one. All right, so here is the beautiful strand that we are using for today, and I need to move you guys over a little bit. Well, it is what it is. Elise says orange is my nemesis. You know, sometimes I feel that way about orange too, and then other times I look at it and I'm like, ooh, I know exactly what I'm going to do with it. It's one of those colors that I go back and forth with. Sometimes I'm really, really inspired by it, and other times I really struggle to find ways to incorporate it. So this is Orange Tiger Strand number 2 from the Pantone Collection. Let me show you the other one too, though, just so that you can get a good look at both of them. So this is Orange Tiger number 1, and the difference here obviously is the beads, but one of the main differences is that this has some gold metal running through it. This one has the silver. So whichever one kind of strikes your fancy is definitely the one that I would go with, or get the bundle and get them all, because the bundle also has the design elements, and it's one of those 3-tiered mixes, and there's just a world of fun stuff in the mix. We're going to be using the bottom tier from this, so I didn't open the entire package. We're going to use some of the beads that are here in the bottom of that. Somebody asked, where is my bead mat? My bead mat is gone. Well, it's not really gone, but I'm not going to be using it anymore just because it was such a drab color, and I feel like this white background is going to be better. Hopefully the colors are going to come across better on this white. So the only problem is that it is kind of slippery. It's not good, you know, for keeping your beads on the table. So we have to be extra careful. But all right, so to get started, what we're going to do is we're going to use this strand exactly like it is. We're going to string it up exactly the way that it is on the card here. And so we're going to be using some gold bead stringing wire. If you are using the silver strand, you can definitely use the silver bead stringing wire, or a bright color bead stringing wire. It's whatever you know, whatever works for you, right? It's going to work the same way no matter what. So I'm going to use some crimp tubes for this, and I'm using some gold wire guardians to get started with this. I'm going to move this up here just a little bit, and we will move this up just a tad. Okay, I'm using crimp tubes just because that is kind of what I always reach for, but crimp beads will work just as well for this. So to get started, all we're going to do is we're going to take our wire guardian, we're going to thread our bead stringing wire right through the wire guardian, okay, through that first, on this one side. We're going to take the wire back down through the other side, And then the loop of that wire is going to sit nicely in the little groove for the wire guardian, right? So now our wire, our bead stringing wire, is not going to be touching any other findings. That's going to keep down the abrasion that's going to happen. That metal wire guardian is just going to be a protective surface between the bead stringing wire and your jump rings or your clasp or whatever. And see how the crimp tubes are rolling away because this bead mat is definitely not a mat. Okay, so I've thread on one of the crimp tubes. I'm going to slide that up and make sure that I get the tails, both of those, into the crimp bead. Okay. And now we are going to crimp with our standard crimper tool. And if you guys need a refresher course on bead stringing wire and how to crimp and all of the information that you need about wire guardians, crimp beads, and stringing and using your crimper tool, then definitely go over to Sara Ellis Designs after this is over, of course. Wait until then and check back. It wasn't this week's video on Monday, but last week's Monday Q&A session, we talked all about bead stringing wire. So if you've got any questions, I try to answer all of them there. If you still have a question that hasn't been answered when it comes to bead stringing wire, then send me a message on Facebook. I will definitely be more than happy to help you. Okay, so we're going to use the back notch of our crimper tool for this. You see, it's the one that they both kind of have that dip shape in them, but this one is the one that has the little tooth that comes down, right? So we're going to place the crimp tube into that back notch on the crimper tool, and we're just going to squeeze down. And what's going to happen is it is going to take both of the wires that are inside the crimp tube, right? And it's going to separate those out so that they're not touching each other on the inside of that crimp tube. All right, Carol, yes, I need to make my own mat from white felt. I don't know though, I'm kind of picky about the felt though, because you know how it tends to pick and pile on you and make those little, that was the problem I was having with the others. Okay, so we've got our end of our bead stringing wire ready to go, and I've got a little bit of a tail here. I'm going to leave it just because, not because it adds any extra security. It does not, so don't think that that's why we're leaving it on there. It's just so that our crimp tube and everything lays nice and flat, okay, when we string on our beads. And let's go ahead and trim off the tail here of our beads, and we're just going to go ahead and thread these on exactly the way that they are. Just transferring them from this strand to this strand, okay? Just gonna string it up exactly like it is, which is one of my very favorite, my little tail sticking out there. One of my favorite parts of the Jessie James bead strands, you don't have to think about the stringing part, right? If you just want to string it exactly like it is, the team, they string these up so beautifully and combine the beads in a way that you can use just right out of the gate. And I love that, because sometimes I want to make a beautiful piece of jewelry and I just don't want to have to do the thinking part, right? Just want to be able to put something together real quick and it be beautiful without me having to rack my brain. All right, this little tail is driving me crazy. So we are going to trim it off out of this bead here. I'm so sorry, you guys. I feel like I'm way out of the shot. So you see the little tail here? It keeps popping out. So we are going to go ahead and trim that guy off, just so that he's only inside that first bead, just to make him behave himself a little bit better. All right. So again, just threading on exactly like it is on the strand. Sometimes the larger hole beads, your bead stringing wire gets lost in there. You have to give it a second. All right. So just simple stringing. At least that's just not an orange person. It seems like just a fall color. You know, I used to feel that way too. And I love orange for the fall, particularly like burnt orange, like the dark orange. That's definitely a fall color that I gravitate towards when I'm making jewelry for the fall. But I'm trying to look at orange in a whole new way. Looking at it in kind of, if you look at it in the citrus sense, right? You've got oranges and tangerines and tangelos and all of the beautiful citrus fruits that are orange. Then if you look at it that way, it kind of convinces yourself to use it as like a tropical kind of beachy summertime, even early springtime bead, right? I try to incorporate it as much as I can. And if it helps, right? If it helps you to see the orange in more than just fall colors, then let me word that a little bit better. If it will help you, then mix in some other colors. Mix in some hot pink, mix in some yellow, mix in something a little different just to give it an extra little pop, and that might help you to see orange as more of a springtime summer color, right? It's all about tricking yourself when it comes to color a lot of times. Wanda says, I'm here. Aren't you glad to see me? Yes, I am. Aren't you glad we're here today on this Thursday? All right, so we're going to do the same thing on the other end. We're just going to use a wire guardian and a crimp tube to crimp this up. And again, if you need questions answered about bead stringing, that is all available. I already did the hard part of that for breaking it all down. But yeah, if you've got questions, please feel free to reach out to me. Right? Just because I did a video of it doesn't mean that I'm going to ignore your bead stringing questions by any means. All right, so I've looped around, just going to pull everything down. You can see I've got a little bit of a tail here. And so what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to thread this through that one bead on the end. And this is going to help to ensure that my bead stringing wire will be separated inside that crimp bead instead of being twisted. I can really kind of pull down from the bottom of this bead instead of trying to pull here at the top of the bead, which has a tendency to one wire, I've got beads on the brain, one wire going down and then one going this direction. If you'll pull them through the first bead, then you've got both wires going down and you don't have the wires fighting against you when you're trying to crimp. You'll want to pull down tight, but you want to give yourself a little bit of wiggle room too. You don't want to pull your bead stringing wire so tight that you don't have a nice drape with your beads. So to double check that, just hold everything up. When you've got everything pulled down, hold everything up. Make sure that it's got a nice drape to it. Adjust it if you need to, and pull tighter if you need to. Whatever you've got to do, double check. Look really well at your crimp bead or your crimp tube to make sure that those wires kind of looking down at it through the top. This is a little bit different when you're working against beads on the end than it is when you get started. When you get started with crimping your crimp tube or your crimp bead, it's pretty easy to see that your wires are not crisscrossed. When it comes to the end, you really have to kind of look at it from the top down, looking inside that crimp bead or crimp tube to make sure the wires aren't crossed. If you've got trouble seeing that, definitely shine a light on it or bring in a magnifier just to be sure that you can really see down inside that crimp. Okay, putting that in the back notch of the crimper tool and then turning it sideways and putting it in the front notch to just kind of close that crimp up nice and neat. So now you can see it's very clean, small, unobtrusive, right? All right, so we want to come in and trim off this tail, get it out of the way, and then we are going to work on our sliding knot. And I just happened to notice that my girl Meredith is here. And Meredith is all... Meredith, I meant to reach out to you yesterday because this sliding knot situation... It was really frustrating me. I think I've got it down now, but in the beginning I was like, oh, I can't do this sliding knot thing. It seems so hard, and it's not. Okay. So what we're going to do is we're going to add a 6mm jump ring to each one of our wire guardians. We're going to close that back. And then we're going to use some of our suede lace on both sides. We're going to tie just a simple knot to attach our suede lace to our 6mm jump ring, but then we're going to use that sliding knot to connect our two ends together. Meredith says it's not hard. Well, it's not now, but it started out, I was so befuddled by the whole thing. Yeah, it was one of those things where I was like, I don't know why, but I just can't make this work. Okay, so I've got a piece of suede lace here. You want to be sure that you've got two pieces. I'm working with about 16 inches here. You don't need this much if you don't, this is just so that you can make a really long necklace out of this if you want to. Keep in mind you are going to shorten it up a bit with your knotting, so that is going to take some of the length out of it. You could probably get away with about 13 inches of your suede lace to get a good necklace that will still fit over your head. Because of the knots, we're not going to need any hardware for this. So the first thing we're going to do is we're just going to make sure that this jump ring is closed well, because it is not. We're going to take our suede lace and we're going to thread it through right here on our jump ring. And all I'm going to do for this is just tie an overhanded knot, very small one. Okay, I don't want much of a tail. So I'm just going to take maybe 2 inches of this, maybe a little bit less actually, to create this knot. Elizabeth, is Meredith in Tucson yet? Meredith, are you in Tucson yet? She might be. I'm not for sure. I don't fly out until Sunday. So just a simple overhanded knot right here. And you want to tighten that down just a bit, okay? And then, and I'm not going to do it now just because I have a tendency to get glue all over my fingers, but I like to take some glue. You can use super glue for this. You can use bead string glue, and put it right here, right? And right here on either side of that knot. Let it dry really, really well. And then you can trim this off if you don't like this little tail thing hanging down. You can trim that off, but I would not do that until you've added some glue and let it dry to really secure your knot. So we're just going to leave it like it is for now, okay? And we're going to do the exact same thing over here on the other side. We want to be sure that we are making our knots the same size, just so that we still have the same length of suede lace on both sides, right? We don't want to make a big knot here with 3 inches and a small knot over on the other side with 1.5 inches, because that's going to take length away from the length section, okay? So as I'm pulling this knot, just kind of want to hold them next to each other and make sure that when I pull them tight, that I have the same amount of tail. That means that I have used basically the same amount of the suede lace on both sides, okay? And again, add your glue, let it dry, and then you can trim that tail off. Okay, so now we're going to the part that is really easy, but for whatever reason was just really, I was really struggling with yesterday. Okay, so we're going to create a sliding knot, which means that our necklace is going to be adjustable so that you're going to be able to open this up nice and wide to go over your head, and then you're going to be able to tighten it back down to make it the length that you want it to be. So there is no hardware involved. This is all going to happen with some knots. So I'm going to move the long section of the beaded section down here out of the way, okay? And you want to take both sides of your faux suede lace or your cord, whatever it is that you happen to be using, and crisscross each other up here at the back of your necklace, okay? Now, you want to take one strand. You have to work on one side at a time, right? This strand that is coming over to my right is the left-handed strand, okay? Want to take that left-handed strand and laying it across the top of that underneath strand. It just helps with your knots with the suede lace if you can lay it out flat, okay? Lay it flat, hold it together in your fingers, and then you just want to take this tail and make a loop, okay? Just lay it, bring it back over itself, okay? Using the tail of your loop that you made, you want to go behind all of the strands, okay? And then you want to loop around once, Loop around twice. If you can get 3 times around, great. If you can't, that's okay. Take your little tail here and stick it through your loop, right? Now, this is the part that I struggled with. I was making this much harder than it actually is. You just kind of want to roll this together. Like you're going to pull on both ends a little bit, take your time, and just kind of roll this whole little knot into shape, right? And when I mean roll, what I mean is kind of pulling down on both sides. Okay. And when Meredith and Sara did this knot for the Facebook Live for Beadalon, Meredith made a really good point. You don't want to pull this knot so tight that you have like a death grip on it, right? You want it to be secure, but it doesn't have to be like the tightest knot in the whole entire world, right? Because you do want this to be able to slide back and forth, clearly. Otherwise, it's not a good slide knot. So you just kind of wiggle it with your fingers until it looks the way you want it to look, right? Get everything tucked inside there. And you've got knot number 1 done. Now we're going to do the exact same thing over here on the other side. And then we're going to do the same thing on the bracelet. So you're actually going to get the opportunity to see this knot being done more than once. What I like to do is flip everything around, right? And just work like I'm working on the right side again. Okay, so I've just flipped my left side over here to the right side. Just makes more sense for me to do my loops on the same side, but you can do it however you want to. Okay, so same thing, you just want to take your end, loop it back on itself. Okay, hold everything together, take the tail end, you're going back behind, right? Once around, twice around, then you want to take your tail through your loop. And then you just kind of give it a little zhuzh, right? Remember when we talked about how you spell zhuzh? That was that whole little zhuzh, totally a technical term. Give it a tug here. Tighten everything down. All right, so now you've got a sliding knot that you can open and close, right? Oops, I didn't get this one very tight. I do have to give it make it a little tighter than what I was doing there. So now you've got a knot that you can adjust, right, to open and close your necklace so that you can put this on, open it up nice and big, slide it over your head, and then you can pull it down to make it shorter if you want to, okay? Fairly easy, right? I don't know why I made it so difficult when it is really not that difficult. Suzanne says it looks easy, but not. It is. You just have to practice it a little bit. And luckily, we're going to do it again. So we have the necklace ready. We're going to do the exact same steps. We're going to follow the exact same steps, just on a smaller scale, to do a bracelet to go with our necklace. Okay, so I'm going to set that to the side. We're going to get another piece of our bead stringing wire out and follow the exact same steps that we did before. And we are going to create a knot for our matching bracelet. Okay, so same steps as before. We're going to thread on one of our crimp tubes onto the end, have our bead stringing wire, and then we are going to thread on our wire guardian. Okay, bring that bead stringing wire back down through the wire guardian, and then through our crimp tube or crimp bead, whichever you happen to be using. Totally up to you. Okay. All right, now we're ready to crimp this with our crimper tool. If it helps you at this point to separate those wires out like this, to be 100% sure that they're not crisscrossing inside that crimp bead, then go for it, right? This is the only opportunity where you have the option to actually hold on to it that way. If it helps you, go for it. Separate those wires out. That keeps you 100% sure. Crimping it in the back notch. Okay, letting go. Turning it over to its side and crimping it in that first notch on the tool. Okay, so now we've got a nice little compact crimp bead, crimp tube. And I'm going to trim this off just a tiny bit. Remember, we just want a little bit through that first bead so that it doesn't stick out for us. And actually, you know what? I'm gonna have to trim this one off even more than that, because the first bead we're gonna use is a little bead. All right, so this is from the Design Elements Orange Tiger. I'm gonna use some of the beads here for this. We're gonna use this elephant as a little dangle because he's just cutie. And we are going to, let's use these guys. All right, so we're gonna thread on one of these little faceted rondelles. Bring that over the top of the tail end of that wire, okay? And now I'm gonna do the boho bead, one of the beautiful orange beads, another boho bead, an orange bead, and then another one of the little rondelles. So this is in the same fashion as the necklace, right? We've just got a short beaded section, but then the length portion of the bracelet, just like the necklace, is going to be the suede lace. So this is the only part of your bracelet that's going to be the beads, okay? And we're going to thread on, just like we did before, a wire guardian. Look, you see the little guy? He popped out. Be sure he goes right back in there before you move on. Don't let him sneak out before you crimp everything. This is very difficult once you've crimped to get that tail tucked back in there. All right, so wire guardian again. Back down through the wire guardian and through our crimp tube. Whoops. If I could see. Okay. And through the crimp bead or crimp tube. Okay. And now, just like with the necklace, I'm going to take the tail end of this and I'm going to run it through this rondelle bead right here, just so that I can ensure that those two bead stringing wire pieces, and you can really look at it, they're running parallel, right, before you pull everything down. All right, pull everything. The back notch of your crimper tool, get a good look at it. Make sure, looking from the top down into the crimp bead, that there is nothing crisscrossed in there. And go ahead and crimp down. And then you want to turn it to the side and close it up to make it nice and compact. All right, now trim off your tail and you are ready to go. A little extra space here, but that's all right. I'm okay with it. So, same thing, if I could keep it in the shot. One of these days, you guys, one of these days. All right, so the same thing, we're gonna add 2 jump rings. Hi, Stacia. We're going to add 2 jump rings to our wire guardians on either end, and then we're going to do the knot again with our suede lace. This time it's just going to be a little bit smaller since we're not working with nearly as much of the suede lace. But I think it's going to help you to see it both ways, right? To see it with a shorter piece so that your loops that you make are not going to be nearly as big. Just to show you that it can be done even with a shorter piece. All right, so closing that back. And I have 2 pieces of the suede lace. These are about 9 inches each. If you've got a larger wrist, you may want to use a little bit more than that. We're going to start this out the exact same way. So we're just using a very small section of this to tie an overhanded knot over that 6mm jump ring. And again, add your glue on either side of your knot, let it dry, and then come back in later and trim off that tail if you don't want the tail there, okay? Same thing on the other side, and we just want to, just like we did with the necklace, we want to be sure that we have the exact same amounts of leather or suede lace or cord, whatever you happen to be using, on both sides. Just kind of tighten down, making sure that they match, okay? All right, so now to the knotting part. Same thing, same process. We've got the 2 ends crossing each other, and let's see, I like the left over the top here. All right, so our tail end here, we're going to loop it back, right? Hold everything down, take the tail,
We're going behind all of the strands, around once, around twice, and the tail here is a little tiny guy, so you might have to use your pliers to get a hold of that. Let's see. I'm going to roll everything together. And there you go. Okay. And you can see it'll slide. Definitely double check it. Make sure that it actually will slide. Okay. All right, so we're going to do the same thing over here on the other side, so I'm going to flip it over. Okay. Taking the tail end of the wire, looping it back on itself. Okay. Taking the tail back behind. We're going once around, twice around, and then taking our tiny little tail through the loop, and then kind of rolling it all into place. And I have to give it a little zhuzh on both sides. All right. And there you go. So now you've got a knot. And you can open and close this, tighten it down. You can widen it up to get it on your arm, or you can make it really small so that it doesn't dangle and fall. I like my bracelets to be tight. You guys can see I have a really tiny wrist, and I don't like to have a lot of movement on my arm. I want my bracelets there, but I don't want them to have a lot of movement, so I keep them tied down pretty tight. If you like your bracelets to be a little bit on the bigger side though, instead of using 9 inches of the suede lace on either side, I would definitely up this because you can always trim off later. You know, with your tail here, just give yourself a bigger tail. Start with maybe 11 inches, right, of the suede lace on either side, and then trim down until you've got it in the size that you want it. Just give yourself an extra 2 inches to work with. Okay. All right. So let's add a dangle to this just because we're extra. And it would not be a Jesse James tutorial for Thursday if we did not do a little wire wrapping. So what we're going to do is we're going to take our little elephant here, and we're going to take a piece of 22 gauge wire. And you guys know I couldn't leave this part out. So we are going to take our round nose pliers. We're going to grab the very, very tip of that. We're going to roll it around the very tip of the pliers once and then twice all the way around. Stop where you see the cut of the wire. Before you take it off of the tool, bend it out this direction. Okay, I've got way more wire than I need. Totally okay. All right, we're going to take the tail end of that wire and go right back through the 2 loops that we made, and then we are coming in with our nylon jaw pliers, and we're going to pull the wire to create a little knot, right? Perfect. So now we're going to thread on our elephant. Okay, and let's just do a wrapped loop at the top of our elephant. Grab that wire right where it is exiting the elephant, bend it 90 degrees, okay? Coming in with the round nose pliers, going up and over, adjusting the grip. Oops, I have to move the elephant around a little bit too. Guide that wire on around. I'm gonna switch hands and probably have to twist the elephant with me as I go, just to get him out of the way. Oh, lost my grip there. And so this is not the prettiest wrapped loop ever, but that's all right, right? You can't see it anyway because it's back behind his ears. So we've got our wrapped loop, and let's add him with a 6mm jump ring. Since there isn't any hardware involved in the clasp of this, we're going to add him right here. I'm going to add him to the wire guardian with a 6mm jump ring. Normally I would add him like towards the back on the clasp, towards where the jump rings are back there, but let's add him to the front since we don't have any of that extra, right? And just close him back. Ta-da! Now we have a little elephant dangle to go with our bracelet, so we've got some extra movement. And we have our matching necklace as well. Don't forget, add the glue, trim off your tails later. Or if you like them, you can leave them, right? It's totally up to you. I kind of like having the extra leather on these because I just kind of like the way leather fringe looks. But again, totally up to you. All right, you guys. Oh, thank you, Sarah. Hi, everyone. All right, so this is an easy project, right? This is an easy one. Sometimes you gotta just take a step back from all the wire wrapping and the craziness, do something a little bit easy, and hopefully take these gorgeous, can I just say, look how pretty, gorgeous orange beads and make a really simple but beautiful necklace and work on those knots, right? That's a technique that we don't talk about a whole lot, but is a really great way to create length, particularly for booths, because you can adjust it, right? You don't have to worry that you've made a necklace that is not the right size for that one person that comes in the booth. Oh, I don't like it to be a 16-inch necklace. Then that takes the guesswork out of that. It's like stretchy jewelry, right? It's like your stretchy bracelets. It takes all of the guesswork out of that. If you can give your customer an adjustable length, then that's really going to make them super happy. Plus the fact that the knots are easy once you practice them and get them down. And then you guys will be adding those knots to absolutely everything, I'm sure. But more than anything, the orange beads, you guys, if you are really struggling to incorporate orange into your designs, take this opportunity to use that 30% off and shop on the Orange Collection. Pick up the strands, pick up the bundle, the Pantone bundle, whatever makes you happy. String it up, just straight string it. You don't have to get crazy with it. Wear it that way for a little while, see how you feel about it, really kind of accept it. Accept that orange. And you'll be inspired. Start looking for orange in your surroundings, right? Look at all the places where there are pops of orange. If you're still struggling past that point, add some pink, add some green, add some yellow to it, and really try to find a way, right? Not just with the orange. Orange just happens to be what we're talking about, but if you're struggling with a color, mix in some different colors with it to help kind of get your creative juices going and find a way to embrace that color. I think that it is beneficial, right, for you to think outside the box, particularly with color. I don't use a lot of gray. I don't use a lot of brown, and I really push myself to do that. So if you're struggling with orange, get your 30% off and put those orange beads in your cart. Use Orange You. Orange You Glad. We had a great tutorial today. And that's as your coupon code. Get your 30% off, you guys, and make something beautiful, because if nothing else, these beads are gorgeous, just like they are. So there you go. All right, a lot of talking, I know, but it was a quick one today. You guys have a wonderful rest of the day. Having an amazing weekend. I will be on Sara Ellis Designs tomorrow at 1 p.m. where you can catch one more project using some beautiful orange beads from Jesse James Beads. And then next week, any lives that happen from Tucson, you guys, we will have those posted on Jesse James Beads for you guys to see. As far as the projects, we don't have a regular schedule for next week, but I will be back week after next, and I'm sure I will be very much inspired after coming back. So looking forward to seeing everybody. Have a great rest of the day. See some of you tomorrow. See some of you in Tucson. Bye, guys.